there's a great start. It's pouring rain where I am, had a lot of thunder and power a little bit intermittent, so fingers crossed that we get through this live without a hitch. But as you know, if you have any questions, you can always drop them in the comments, shoot me a DM, send me a message, or send me an email. What we're talking about today is sort of related to a new offer that I have coming out, a new service that I'm providing business owners and founders, but it really centers on how to secure earned media appearances for your brand or your business. I'm going to go into what exactly all of that means, and then I'll give you a couple of tips about how you can make sure that you're handling your media opportunities effectively. That's a much bigger conversation as it relates to media training. But I'll give you a primer because I know a lot of people have questions about how you effectively handle media. Okay, first things first. What is the difference between paid media and earned media? I'm willing to bet most people watching you perhaps are thinking of earned media in terms of what you might potentially experience on social media, which is where most of our minds go as it relates to media. I'm talking about more traditional, if you will, media outlets, venues, publications. I'm talking about mainstream news programming, NBC News, ABC, Fox News, CNBC, Fox Business Channel. I'm talking about more mainstream publications. It could be your local morning show or your local newspaper. It could be the Wall Street Journal, and of course, podcasts. Earned media and paid media function very similarly or operate with a similar meaning in those specific mediums as it does in social. Social media, paid media is a digital app, right? In traditional media, paid media is very similar. It's a pay-to-play model. What I'm talking about here is earned media, meaning media that you have quote-unquote earned through being a subject matter expert in a particular area, or having something new, interesting, and different to say about a particular topic or some particular value to add to an audience for one of these particular outlets I mentioned. And again, sort of like a very overall and basic look at the differences between the two. The great thing about earned media, and I'll use a little bit of a story to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. So imagine if, say, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 a.m., and suddenly there is someone who has entered your home and is sitting on the foot of your bed telling you what the day's news is, what's happening overnight. Or there's somebody in your bathroom at 7 a.m., uninvited, and telling you what's going on today, what news has happened overnight, or conversely at 12 noon or at 5 p.m. If there was somebody in your house who came in unannounced, uninvited, and proceeded to sit down, tell you what was going on in the world, my guess is you would probably usher them out fairly directly in one of two ways, maybe with a baseball bat. The thing is, when you are on TV, you are on a radio show, or you are on a credible podcast, you are in fact invited to be in all of those places at all of those times. When somebody wakes up in the morning early to work out, go to work, and they turn on the news at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., yes, exactly, it's on those hours. Or they are in their kitchen having breakfast at 7 a.m. and they turn on the news, or they turn on a show. Same thing at noon or in the evening. What they're saying indirectly is that they trust that outlet or that medium, and as a result, they trust you, speaking as if you were appearing on that show or being quoted in that publication or article, because you have already been vetted by a team that they trust. You are the subject matter expert on Good Morning America, or your local NBC affiliate, or your local newspaper, because you have been vetted by that particular outlet, by the producers, by the reporters, by the anchors, by the managing editors, whatever it is. So that comes along with a healthy dose of not just visibility, but credibility and trust as well. That is the power of earned media. You don't get there by paying to be in the publication. You get there because you have been vetted and you are a subject matter expert, and people would like to hear from you. So that's the power of being featured, being quoted, etc., in the media, right? So I hope I've explained that fairly well. If you have questions, by all means, drop them in the comments and we'll go from there. What does a media opportunity consist of? How do you effectively prepare? I had a media opportunity, a live interview on NBC News National on Tuesday. I shared the clip yet or anything like that. I will walk you through my process. I shared a post, I guess it was on Wednesday, yesterday, about some of my process for putting together my talking points and owning them. If you want to check that out, I'll put my post yesterday, and I did. But a media interview will generally come, again, I'm talking about more traditional publications or outlets, will generally come in one of four ways. After you pitch yourself and assuming the pitch has been accepted, it will come as a request for quotes, and that can come in the form of either written quote, they'll send you an email or a form, and you will respond to the questions that they've asked via text, via copy, right? And then they'll pull from those quotes and add them into their publication. That would be exclusively for some sort of print or text-based media outlet. Maybe it's a website, maybe it's a blog, maybe it's a newspaper or a magazine article. The second type of interview is a phone call interview. That could also be used, your answers, to transcribe into something that is applicable for a print medium. It could also be used in a radio show. It could be used certainly in a podcast if there's pre-production. It could also potentially be used in a television interview. I, as a former anchor and reporter, have done phone interviews. They were done more often in the days pre-Zoom or video call, but they could potentially still be done again, especially if there is an issue with perhaps an internet connection, right? And then they'll pull the sound of your voice and probably put your headshot on the screen along with text of your title interview underneath. The other type of interview is a video interview. Those are done in one of, generally speaking, two ways. You could have a crew come out to your office or your home and shoot a video interview there or a segment there. More often than not, it will be done via Zoom or some sort of video recording platform, much like the one I'm watching now, or it will be done in a studio. It can be done live, meaning as you're speaking, the words are going out directly the air, or it could be done, as they still say in the news business, to tape, meaning it is something that is going to be recorded and then used at a later time, either in its entirety for a segment, a live to tape segment, if you will, or as a package piece, meaning they'll pull sound bites from you and they'll intersperse it with voiceover from the reporter describing more in depth the details about whatever the topic is about what you're speaking. The trickiest thing for most people to understand is that when you are speaking in a live interview format, because the rest they can tweak and pull and they can edit. Live interview format is insanely concise. And I touched on this a little bit yesterday in my post. This is not, or my video rather, this is not a podcast opportunity. This is not an half an hour or a 45-minute interview that is very conversational. When I pitched NBC, I had 5 talking points and I had 5 suggested questions. My interview itself, and I'll tell you how I put this together in just a moment, but I rehearsed them. And I probably had a good 5 to 10 minutes of talking points that I could go into. What I actually had was 2 minutes and 30 seconds total, including the anchors and drill. This meant that I had the opportunity to actually answer 2 of my questions, which means that as you're prepping to put together your talking points, sound bites, headlines, recognize that you're probably going to get at most, if it's a live interview, 3 talking points, and you have to drive aggressively to what you want people to take away from the interview. So every single one of your questions and your answers needs to be incredibly deliberate, intentional, and concise. So as I'm putting together my answers or my responses to the questions that they could ask me, they don't have to use any of the questions that I ask. They can do whatever they want. But my goal is I want people to take away these 3 things, right? I got over fear of speaking. You can get over 2. This is why video is important for your business. And here's a quick takeaway to get started. Those are my 3 main points. So for each question, I created basically a lead sentence. Where most people get this wrong is that their lead naturally comes as sort of the bow on the end of their answer. It's sort of the thing that wraps everything up and they feel like it nicely packages it. Really, generally speaking, you'll find that the most common mistake people make is that their lead sentence is actually close to the end of their answer. So yes, you are scripting your answers or when you're practicing what you want to say, I want you to write it out word for word until you get used to it. And then you'll have a much better feel for, you might get familiar with a particular show or a particular anchor or a particular reporter, and you understand the conversation, and you know where it's going to go much more intuitively. But when you're first getting started, absolutely, you need to plan these things out and see where the overlap is, see where there is repetition, you will see where you've made some mistakes. In fact, just walked through this process with the media training client yesterday. This particular client has hit on national news program this Saturday morning, and there are 5 talking points, and there are 2 particular subjects on which she will be speaking. And we walked through the answers for each talking point. This is your lead, this is your soundbite, and here is what you need to come after. And oh, by the way, here's how you tie all these elements together. Her interview is going to be lengthy. Her interview is probably going to be for TV anyway, close to 5 minutes, maybe even a little bit more if they have some time to go. So that's not a typical TV length interview, normally quite a bit shorter. So after crafting your answers, you are putting the lead to whatever it is that you want to say right at the top. Generally speaking, in the news world, we call this the inverted pyramid. You may have heard of this style of writing, more closely aligned with the newspaper, but it applies to a TV interview as well, which means we're basically, here's the lead, right? It's the biggest part of what it is that you're saying. And then the rest of your answer is structured, again, in an inverted pyramid. We're moving from the need to know what grabs the biggest attention down into the still important to know, and then down at the bottom, the nice to know. Because if you're running out of time, this part can go away. Yeah, you have to learn how to edit it on the fly. You've got to recognize sort of intuitively as you practice how long you've been talking. Have I been talking for 30 seconds? Have I been talking for 60 seconds? When do I need to wrap it up? And when do I need to cut things out? And so you'll understand that you structure your answers this way, that it becomes much easier to cut things out at the bottom because they're no longer necessary. They're just nice to know. So you create a lead, and that lead is, and I'll give you an example of something I used to create my lead. Of course, I'm pulling my notes out from my trip now. Should have these ready for you. So one of the questions that I had was that I suggested at the ask. Here's my pitch. Why is video so important for small business owners to use in their marketing? And my answer started with video is a non-negotiable. It functions as a 24/7, 365 global sales team for your business. That's the lead. Okay, it's a non-negotiable. Well, she said it is. Now she's going to tell me why it's a non-negotiable. Start out explaining why it's a non-negotiable through the statistics of the way that video can function in your business. And then I went into a story about a client that I have in the financial space who has not created any video, who has not done any media. He is looking to bring in new clients, but is struggling to bring them in because they're all searching for video content, and he hasn't. So that is a story that aligns with, again, the headline, sound right, the talking point, key takeaway, and then something to support that allows a business owner to see why this might be effective or useful for them. One of the other questions that they asked was, where should small businesses look to put their videos? TikTok might be going away. They didn't ask, but this was one of the things that I suggested they ask. And so I went into video needs, your business needs to have an omni-channel approach. And then I dove into using TikTok as a potential of TikTok going away, about why that's important. And then a story about how LinkedIn has now started a video feed very similar to Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and of course TikTok, that you can scroll through vertical video, going from video to video to video because of the power of video and why pretty much all platforms are prioritizing at this point. I say pretty much because for a while, LinkedIn wasn't prioritizing at all. It was a text first based platform, and that is changing. Of course, that video structure could go away and people don't use it or they find that it doesn't create engagement, but they're recognizing the power of those types of video formats on Instagram and TikTok, and they're looking to take a page out of the social media platform of both. One of the other questions that I had, or one of the suggested questions that I had was, one of you would suggest getting constructive feedback. If a small business owner can't afford a coach like you, where should they go? And what I suggested was starting a small group, starting a group in Facebook, and you can do this too, starting a group in Facebook or in Slack, or some other private chat, whatever it is, where you have a small group of business owners who are posting videos and giving one another feedback. Here was the story to that. The story to that is the analogy that I created about why that's not always successful. It's because the video is a subjective platform. And the analogy that I created to explain why that is the case was, and you can do this right now, think about it or musicians for that matter, who everybody else seems to love, and you just don't. Not necessarily because they're bad or they've done anything that has offended you. They're just not your flavor. Video operates in much the same way for business owners. And that's a good thing. Number one, because it does repel people who are probably not going to be a good fit for you. You're going to recognize that. The sales call, video helps cut that process down, and it will bring the right people to you. But what that means is there may be people in that group who just subjectively, for whatever reason, or subjectively don't like your vibe or your style. They're not the ideal person. So my point with relaying that particular story is to recognize that there are limits to that sort of feedback. And the challenge, and this is something I walk my clients through, is you got to sift through it without that personal feeling of, oh my God. And take what applies to you and apply it, and then blow the rest. And then finally, one of the other questions that I had that I think was particularly interesting is, if you hate seeing yourself on camera, how do you get around that? And my lead was, join the club. We all hate seeing ourselves on camera. I've been doing this for 25 years. I still hate seeing myself. That's the lead. Okay, I'm going to hate seeing myself. What's the next takeaway? The takeaway there in this particular answer was, your mission and your purpose has got to be bigger than your fear. And you get through the fear by practicing, practicing, practicing. In the meantime, if you're not quite ready, your face to be front and center, here's what I would suggest to create video content without you being the main focus. That said, you got to break the fear. In this sort of era now of generic AI content, video, your face, your voice. Yes, I realize there's all sorts of deep fakes, but those just aren't famous enough to have that recognition. Your face and your voice as the founder of your business is going to be what sets you apart. Absolutely your messaging, absolutely your vibe, but it's a much more powerful emotional connection and creates much more top of mind awareness when someone sees you or someone hears you. In fact, I would say that all of my big corporate clients have come from my life, because they're not fancy. There's not a whole lot of production that goes into my live stream, but it's really real. They get a sense of who I am. They get a sense of my expertise. And had I done a video or a text post or a picture post on LinkedIn instead, probably would have not had the same level of success with large clients, really large clients. Which is not to say that text and pictures aren't important, but I'm saying that top of mind exposure connection, that comes much more powerfully and with much more recall when you are creating a video. And so as I was in the car ride on the way to the appearance at NBC at 30 Rock, Midtown Manhattan, I was restructuring, rewriting, reworking a lot of my answers, because speaking them out loud and actually looking at the language on paper helps me realize that I made the same mistake. I put the lead down on the bottom rather than at the top. I don't craft the story. My talking points are not strong enough so that no matter what those 10 questions they ask me, I'm always hitting the most important. So as you're crafting your answers, I want you to think about this. Here's really the key takeaway for today. No matter how much time you have, no matter how many questions you have suggested, whatever, recognize all of that can change in a flash. There's breaking news where the anchors or hosts decide not to use any of your questions, and the truth is they very rarely do. You have got to have your answers hone in on whatever those 3 key components are every single time. Video is important. You can get over the fear. Here's how you can start. Those were my 3, and each answer had an element of that in it, right? Through the headline, through the key takeaway, and then through a nice story to apply. So as you're thinking about your answers, recognize that on a live TV interview, you're going to have anywhere between 30 to 60 seconds, generally speaking, to answer whatever question they throw at you. And trust me, it goes by a heck of a lot more quickly than you think it does. My interview started, I blinked my eyes, and it was over. And so as you're crafting, remember, everything is super concise. This gets tricky because most of us as business owners have had, if they have any, primary experience in being on camera or answering those questions in a podcast format, which means we have long, rambling, 3-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute answers. The host can ask their questions. It goes through potentially even a series of post-production edits, so answers can be trimmed down. You don't have the opportunity to do any of that when you're in a live interview situation. Your answers have to be on point. They'll never be perfect. In fact, in a post probably later next week, I will go through my appearance and I will give it play by play. Here's what I screwed up. Here's what I did right. Here's how I would change it in the future. Here's how I want to do this differently, the same, whatever the case may be. Because nobody gets it right all the time. Okay. Nobody gets it right any time. So, or 100% right anyway. So I would walk you through sort of my play-by-play. I'm going to break down my line-by-line analysis, my appearance, what I liked and what I didn't like. So that's it for today's live news. This is a short one. I see you there. Thank you for joining. I drop in the comments a link to book a Pitch Perfect Medium Master Strategy call if you are interested in learning about Medium to be able to handle your business and how you can prepare for it. And I will also drop in the comments the Pitch Perfect framework, which is the framework I used to pitch NBC News, and in fact, a copy of the actual pitch that I used as well, so that you can see what goes into creating an effective pitch. I will be clear, there's not one pitch template that is going to work for every single media outlet or format. This particular pitch wouldn't have worked as well for a newspaper pitch. It wouldn't have worked as well for a product pitch. There's different sorts of pitches for different types of media appearances and different goals for that media outlet. And of course, you as business owners, subject matter expert, personal brand. Nevertheless, I'm going to put them in the comments, and if you are listening to this podcast, they will be in the show notes. And if you have a suggestion or question or topic ideas that would be helpful for you as you're exploring potential media training or media opportunities for your business, shoot me a DM or send me an email, Carrie@carriebarrett.com, and I will work your question, suggestion, idea into my live stream and podcast rotation. That said, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and I will see you back here next week, same time and same place. Ciao.